Hi everyone. So this is the fourth video of our series, The History of English Literature. The link of the first three videos will be given in the description. So in the first three videos, we discussed about the history of English literature. Regarding the Anglo-Saxon literature, Anglo-Norman literature and age of Chaucer. So we discussed about how English literature has evolved from the epic poetry of Anglo-Saxon literature to the courtly love of Middle English literature and the realistic and satiristic works of the age of Chaucer. So in these three ages, you can find the rising of English literature. In the Anglo-Saxon and Anglo-Norman period, even though in quantity it was not that much, from a very oral poetry, you can find the development of English literature to prose to the other genres of poetry, especially heroic poetry, lyric poetry, Christian poetry. And then moving on, we reach the matters of France, matters of Britain, matters of Rome, Chanson de Juste, and then we reached Geoffrey Chaucer, who is regarded to be the father of English literature and who entirely brought English to another level. And we know the Canterbury Tales, which is regarded to be a masterpiece work of Geoffrey Chaucer for its characterization, for its humoristic portrayal, for his observation, and all these works had made, or all these contributions had made East Midland dialect the standardized version of Middle English. And now coming to the next part, or the fourth part, that is the Age of Revival. So Age of Revival is normally regarded as the century and a half after the death of Geoffrey Chaucer in 1400. So Age of Revival is mostly from 1400 to 1557. Even though this is regarded to be the most volcanic period of English history, this is also regarded to be the most barren period of English literature, because there were no, like every age is known by one of its chief writers. For example, Age of Chaucer is known by Geoffrey Chaucer. Similarly, in Renaissance, you can find numerous writers, including Shakespeare, Christopher Marlowe, Ben Jonson, all the university wits, and even in Jacobean age also we can find the writers like Webster, Ben Jonson, etc., etc., etc. But when it comes to Age of Revival, there is no particular writer to enlighten, or there is no particular writer to to be glorified during this period. So Age of Revival, it's actually considered to be the most volcanic period in English history, because this is actually the beginning of Renaissance. Okay, in the next stage, Elizabethan age, the Renaissance has already begun. So you can find many changes, a great turmoil of changes, or great chaotic changes happening in Britain during this Age of Revival. But when it comes to literature, there are very few works when it comes to literature. So Age of Revival, it is important from a historical point of view, because it is the beginning of Renaissance, and this is also the age of transition, the transition from Middle English to modern English, or the arrival of Renaissance, which actually entirely changed the perspective, changed everything regarding everything in English literature. So anyway, the first thing that we are going to have a look is the historical background in Age of Revival. So Henry V led his army abroad in the impossible attempt to gain for himself three things: a French wife, a French revenue, and the French crown himself. So that's actually the beginning of the that's actually the beginning of this Age of Revival. So we know from the time of Geoffrey Chaucer, we discussed about how Henry V came into the throne, and then he started this war with the war abroad for a French wife, for a French revenue, and the French crown. And the Battle of Agincourt, it was 1414-15, and 5 years later, by the Treaty of Troyes, France acknowledged his right to all his outrageous demands. And when Henry died in 1422, leaving his son heir to the crowns of France and England. So we have already discussed about 100 years of war, when 100 years of war in Age of Chaucer. So 100 years of war, it ended during this time of Age of Revival, and this is one thing that we can sign. So Henry V, he was the most prominent ruler during that time, and you can find a shift from this feudal agrarian economy to a more centralized. At this time, economy became much more centralized, much more commercial economy, and you can also find the rise of the middle class people and also the beginning of capitalism. So slowly from feudalism, England was slowly having a transition towards capitalism. And Henry V, he died in 1222, and his son Henry VI became the King of England and France. And his son, Henry VI, was the shadow of a king, a puppet in the hands of powerful nobles who seized the power of England and turned it into self-destruction. Meanwhile, all his foreign possessions were won back by the French under the magic leadership of Joan of Arc. So, we already mentioned about Joan of Arc while we were discussing about 100 years of war. So, this was actually the time, that was during the time of Henry VI. Even though Henry V was actually a successful ruler from the perspective of England, Henry VI was not that successful. Gradually, French, they got back their territories, they got back their riches, and Henry VI was regarded to be a puppet in the hands of these powerful nobles who seized the power of England. So, ultimately, the peace or stability was not there in England during the time of Henry VI. And we can say that this finally led to the War of Roses. Okay, so War of Roses is actually one of the significant historical event that happened during this age of revival. So we can say there are two major rebellion that happened during this age of revival. One is the Bloody Wars of the Roses, and the other one is Cade's Rebellion. So Cade's Rebellion, it happened around 1450, which was followed by this War of Roses from 1455 to 1485, and these are names to show how the energy of England was violently destroying itself. So this was actually the time when England needed no enemies, because England itself was an enemy to itself. So there were civil wars happening in England. There were wars between powerful dynasties, which ultimately led to the assassination of different potential heirs who could entirely change the change the development of England. So this was actually the time that these two rebellion, the Cade's Rebellion and the War of Roses, these are names to show how the energy of England has, how they were violently destroying itself. So they were like a balance wheel that lost its balance. Okay, so that was the condition of England during the time of Age of Revival. That is why it is regarded to be the most volcanic period in English history. And then it ultimately culminated in the Battle of Bosworth Field in 1485, where Richard III was defeated by Henry Tudor. So Richard, the reign of Richard, it was regarded to be a very frightful reign. Okay, this frightful reign of Richard III has marked the end of self-war and the self-destruction of feudalism. And finally, you can find that there was a possibility for a new growth under this Tudor dynasty. So, the establishment of the Tudor dynasty, which brought relative stability to England. So, under the popular Tudors, England was slowly starting to get better, or England was slowly starting to face this development under the Tudor dynasty. So, that's about this War of Roses. So, the War of Roses, it is a series of civil war between two major dynasties in England. One is the Lancaster, which was represented by Red Rose, and York, which was represented by White Rose over the English throne, and they fight with each other, ultimately resulted in the death of many potential heirs, many potential noblemen, and finally the War of Roses ended with the defeat of Richard III in the hands of Henry VII or Henry Tudor, and that is the beginning of this Tudor dynasty. So when we say Tudor dynasty, there are basically 5 kings or 5 rulers when it comes to Tudor dynasty, starting with Henry the Seventh and ending with Elizabeth the First. And when Elizabeth first died, she has got no children, and therefore the throne was passed to James the First of Scotland, and James the First was of Stuart dynasty. So that is the end of Tudor dynasty and the beginning of Stuart dynasty. So these were the popular Tudors: Henry the Seventh, Henry the Eighth, Edward the Sixth, Mary the First, and Elizabeth the First. And there were many changes that happened during the time. Along with Renaissance, England, the Church of England was established. England got separated from Roman Catholic Church after centuries of faithful devotion to Rome, and you can find many changes. And under Elizabeth First, everything got back to normal. There were peace for long period after the self-destruction. So Tudor dynasty was regarded to be one of the greatest eras in English literature, in English history. So the Tudor dynasty, it was founded by Henry Tudor or Henry the Seventh, who became Henry the Seventh after defeating Richard the Third at the Battle of Bosworth Field in 1485. And this battle, it effectively ended the Battle of Roses, a series of civil wars between the House of Lancaster and Yorks. And Henry the Seventh's claim to the English throne was actually relatively weak, because it came through his mother, that is the Lady of House of Beaufort. She was actually a descendant of John of Gaunt, the patron of Geoffrey Chaucer. And John of Gaunt was the son of Edward the Third. So he strengthened his claim by marrying Elizabeth of York, and thereby managing to bring an alliance between this Lancaster and York, ending the civil war ending the series of conflicts between these Yorks and Lancaster. And by his marriage, he united the varying houses of Lancaster and York. So that's how the Tudor monarchy came. So the first Tudor monarch, Henry the Seventh, descended through his mother from the House of Beaufort, a legitimized branch of the English royal House of Lancaster, a cadet house of the Plantagenets. The Tudor family rose to power and started the Tudor period in the wake of the Wars of the Roses. And speaking about the different rulers of Tudor dynasty, I will just give you the names. So first we have Henry the Seventh. So his contribution, he ruled from 1485 to 1509. He established the Tudor dynasty and he restored stability to England after the War of Roses. And he strengthened the monarchy by reducing the power of the nobility and promoting trade and exploration. So this is actually the time where England was slowly starting to get rich by their explorations, by their conquering, etc. And now comes Henry the Eighth, the most controversial ruler of the English history. He is famous for his 6 marriages, and we know that he was first married to Catherine, and Catherine was the only Catholic queen, and they had this daughter Mary. But Henry, he wanted a male daughter, and he considered his wife to be guilty for giving him a female hair, and therefore he wanted to remarry. But according to the Catholic Church, remarriage while the wife is alive is not at all possible, and therefore he decided to start a church on its own, or he decided to separate England from the rest of the Roman Catholic Church. And that is how the Church of England came. Church of England was established in England. So then he married Anne Boyle, who gave him Elizabeth I, and still he was not satisfied without a male heir, and he married 6 times and he got a male heir, that is Edward VI. But unfortunately, Edward VI was not that up to the expectation of Henry VIII. He died very young. He was an ill boy, and ultimately the Mary I came to the throne. So he broke with the Roman Catholic Church and established the Church of England, leading to the dissolution of the monasteries, expanded the Royal Navy and centralized administrative power. And this Royal Navy, it became the most powerful during the time of Elizabeth I. And it was followed by Edward VI, son of Henry VIII and Jane Seymour, a young Protestant king who continued the Reformation. His reign was marked by economic difficulties and social unrest, because he was very young. he was just 9 when he became the ruler, and therefore he was ruled by the king. The kingdom was ruled by the ministers, and therefore there was complete social unrest along with the fight between the Anglicans and the Catholics. And it was followed by Mary the First, daughter of Henry the Eighth and Catherine. She attempted to restore Catholicism in England and is often remembered for her persecution of Protestant, earning her the nickname Bloody Mary. So she wanted to restore Catholicism because Church of England was one reason why her mother was killed. Mother was put into considered. I mean, mother was. Killed, and therefore she wanted to bring back Catholicism, and ultimately that got her name Bloody Mary. And her marriage to Philip II of Spain was unpopular and led to political tension. So then we have Elizabeth I. So the Tudor period was marked by the centralization of power, religious transformation, significant cultural development. The dynasty ended with the death of Elizabeth I in 1603, leading to the succession of the Stuart dynasty beginning with James I. So we will speak about Mary the First, Elizabeth in the Elizabethan age. So remember that the Tudor dynasty was very important, or they had got great contributions to the history of English literature, not just English literature, towards the history to the history of England itself. They have got great contributions because Henry VII, he ended the conflict of civil wars, and Tudor dynasty Henry VIII, he established the Church of England, and even now England is following the Church of England pattern. Now, moving to the contributions, we have William Caxton. Okay, so William Caxton, printing was brought to England by Caxton. In 1450s, printing press was established in Europe, and it was William Caxton who brought this printing press to England in 1476, and it was for the first time it became possible for a book to reach the entire country, or for a book to reach the whole nation. So Caxton, he was a great translator. He started to translate works into English. He started to print many works in order to make them memorable. And you can find that the influence of Caxton was very, very important, because it was his translation of Le Morte d'Arthur that we read now, or that is famous. So he translated many books to English, and that also shows the rising of a middle class educated people, or rising of a middle class audience. Okay, and now speaking about the important writers, or speaking about the literature of revival. As I said earlier, when we say the age of revival, what we are referring to is a century and a half after the death of Chaucer, that is from 1400 to 1550. So, as I said earlier, when it comes to literature, it was the most barren period. There were many Reformation writings, like the writings of Erasmus, the Prince of Foley, because these were all important under the circumstances. But the most important works that we can say during the time of age of revival is Utopia and Le Morte d'Arthur by Thomas Malory. Okay, so the other writers here are Roger Ascham. Roger Ascham is a very famous classical scholar. He published a book called Talks of Phillis, or the School of Shooting. That was one major contribution towards prose. And the two greatest books which appeared in England during this period are obviously Erasmus' Praise of Folly and Thomas More's Utopia. And both were written in Latin, but it was speedily translated into all the European languages. And the most important, or the most significant works of age of revival in English literature is regarded to be Thomas More's Utopia and also Thomas Malory's Le Morte d'Arthur. So Le Morte d'Arthur, since it's an epic work, it has got more influences in the upcoming revenge tragedy genres. At the same time, Thomas More's Utopia, it showed the culture, the social, political, cultural issues of the time of the Tudor dynasty, especially during the time of Henry VIII. Okay, and then other contributions regarding, and about Roger Ascham, we know that he was a very famous classical scholar. His book was Talks of Phillis, which is actually a guide for shooting, the people who are interested in shooting. It was published in 1545, and there is a preface to this talks of Phyllis, in which he expresses a dissatisfaction over the neglect of native literature. As I said earlier, this was regarded to be a very barren age, and in that preface you could find how the writers considered the neglect, or how they address the issues of this neglect of this native language, because since it is the beginning of Renaissance, there was a little bit of affection towards this classical literature. Now, moving to the next important works, we have Tyndale's New Testament, which was published in 1525. It has got a great influence among the common people. They started to consider Bible not as a Latin text, but as an English text, which can be understood, which can be read and understood by any common man in England. And it was the foundation for the authorized version. And then the Complete English Bible of Miles Coverdale, 1535, Cromwell's Great Bible, 1539, and finally Thomas More's Utopia in 1530. So here Tyndale's Bible, it's actually really important. It's greater than either of these books in its influence upon the common people. So when it comes to the Complete English Bible or Cromwell's Great Bible, obviously Tyndale's New Testament is regarded to be one of the most, regarding the influence upon the common people, it's always Tyndale's work. And Tyndale, he made his translation from original Greek work, and he later translated parts of the Old Testaments from Hebrew. So it was considered to be more credible work or more authentic translation of Bible. And then, as I said earlier, we have Roger Ascham's Talks of Phyllis, and then we have Yat and Surrey, who brought Petrarch sonnets, so who brought the genre of sonnets into English literature, which comes to its ultimate at the age of Elizabeth. Okay, during the Elizabethan age, in the hands of Sidney Spencer, Shakespeare, the sonnets has reached its extreme. So Yat and Surrey, the first printed collection of miscellaneous English poems in Tottel's Miscellany, 1557. Then we have Malory's Morte d'Arthur, the collection of Arthurian romances told in simple and vivid prose. So these are some of the important works that we can find in Age of Revival. So that's all about this video. So remember, in this video we discussed about the historical backgrounds of the Age of Revival. Age of Revival is regarded to be the most volcanic period in English history because of its self-destruction with War of Roses, and how this War of Roses ended with the Tudor dynasty, which started with Henry Tudor on Henry VII until Elizabeth I. And then we discussed about the different Tudor kings, and finally the different literary works of Age of Revival. So that's all about this video. Thank you.